What's up everybody, Jesse here with episode 5 of the Hylians Gamescast. In this episode, we will be discussing the SNES Classic, a possible future Nintendo 64 Classic, new Breath of the Wild DLC and side quest, answering questions sent in from fans like yourself, and much more. If you want to be featured on our show, receive a shout out, have your question prioritized, or have us discuss a specific topic, comment below or head over to patreon.com/GameOverJesse, where just $1 can guarantee you are featured on the show, and you could even end up as a special guest. This is a video discussion podcast, but if you would rather listen to an audio-only version instead of staring at our beautiful faces, you can download the full podcast from iTunes or SoundCloud. The full raw unedited podcast goes up on iTunes as soon as it can be uploaded. Then throughout the week, each individual segment or topic uploads as its own video here on YouTube. Thank you for watching, and thank those of you who have downloaded the podcast on iTunes. This podcast really wouldn't be possible without your support. As a thank you, we will be doing some game and amiibo giveaways on our next podcast, along with some shoutouts. Again, to enter, just comment below or head over to patreon.com/GameOverJesse and enjoy the rest of the show.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Hylian Gamescast. We are your hosts. I'm Daniel, and I'm joined with my regular co-host who is back again from being out of town and concerting and parading, and he went to the moon, and now he's back. It's Game Over Jesse.
Hi everybody, glad to be here once again. Yes, for those following us, or me on Twitter, Discord, wherever, you may have noticed I've been absent for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. Not really any videos being posted. No messages or posts from me directly on Twitter, Facebook, or anything. So yeah, had a lot of fun at a concert, went and hung out with Escape the Fate. I might post some pictures and stuff, some videos on the channel for some of you guys to watch. I tried my best to do my first vlog, so if I ever get that edited, it'll be posted. So I had a lot of fun, but I'm glad to be back and finally working on more videos. So glad to be here again with Daniel.
Yeah. And it's great to have you back. Although Rick did a great job filling in last week.
Yes. Rick took my place, which that video should be going up very soon. Probably before you all even see this one.
So time travel for anyone watching.
Yes.
All right. So I suppose we should just jump right into the news.
Yes, we have some very interesting news. This first one here, the SNES Classic Update N64 Mini News Super Nintendo Stock Reveal is the title that Express.co.uk gives it. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about this news, Daniel?
Well, basically, in short, the SNES Classic is super popular, as people probably have already figured out, especially if you're online and you find people reselling them for like $250. So it's a pretty big hit, and there's restocks coming in. But the big piece of news to take from this article is that what like Nintendo did with the NES Classic and the SNES Classic is they put the game manuals online at those times. And fans have discovered that digging deep into the Nintendo UK website, 19 game manuals for the N64, or for N64 games, just went online as well. And this is also what they did before revealing the SNES Classic, so people are speculating that this is foreshadowing for an N64 Classic Edition to be coming out, including games. Some of the listed ones were Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Ocarina of Time, and Donkey Kong 64.
And this is exactly what happened before the SNES Classic was revealed.
Exactly.
Now, this is interesting because there was an interview, I believe it was an interview a few weeks ago, it was actually several weeks ago, around the launch of the SNES Classic, where Nintendo, I believe, mentioned that next year, around this time, they would be relaunching the NES Classic.
I believe in the summer, they said.
Yeah, so it would be interesting if they relaunched the NES Classic alongside or months before the N64 Classic. And there's also people who are wanting the Game Boy Classic, which I have no idea how that would work. The whole concept of the Classic system so far is that they plug into your TV. And I don't think Nintendo wants to release like a Game Boy Mini or whatever they're going to be calling it, that not only are you going to be carrying around your Switch, your cell phone, whatever else you may have, PlayStation Vita for those who have those, but then like you're going to have those 2 or 3 handheld devices, and then you're going to have the Game Boy. And then it's like, do you launch just the Game Boy, or do you launch like a GB hybrid to where it's like the Game Boy Advance, but it also plays the Game Boy games? Like it gets a bit complicated there, because didn't the Game Boy did come out before the N64, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and I guess they're just skipping the Virtual Boy. So
I think that's a wise business decision. But yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful. The N64 was, though not the first console that I owned, because the Super Nintendo was my first home console as a child, but it's definitely the one that I like. It's in that real huge nostalgia factor where I was like old enough to really actually be good enough at games to like play through them all, and so like that's a big point of nostalgia for me, is that console. So to see an N64 Classic would just be amazing. I would love it.
So what are a couple of obscure games that you would like to see?
Obscure games on the N64? Here's a weird one. It's like Goemon's Adventure. It's kind of a weird game.
One that I played, I forgot who made it, but Rocket Robot on Wheels was really fun. And I know like there's a lot of classic games that unless Nintendo and Microsoft had some sort of partnership, I don't think they would be able to do it, because Microsoft recently, a year or two ago, released the Rare Replay for Xbox One, which had a lot of games that people played like on Nintendo 64, the Super Nintendo, and even the NES, because Xbox wasn't even around like back in the N64 and SNES days, and because they bought Rare, they now had the ownership of all of those classic games that people played on those consoles, like
Banjo-Kazooie.
Banjo-Kazooie, Battletoads, I believe.
Now here's the question: is I was talking to someone else in person about the Rare games, basically, in the state of old N64 Rare games. And I think 007 is a bit of an enigma that we may never see another release of. And the reason for that is 007 GoldenEye on the N64 was a game licensed by Nintendo, developed by Rare, who is owned by Microsoft, using licenses by the James Bond brand, which is owned by MGM, which is owned by Sony. So at this point, a re-release of 007 GoldenEye on the N64 or an N64 Classic feels to me like there would have to be some really big talks between these companies in order to get that off the ground. But I like if they could make it happen, because at this point it seems like the companies are being pretty, or at least Nintendo and the other companies with each other, not so much Microsoft and Sony with each other, but Nintendo with Microsoft and Nintendo with Sony, they seem to be getting along pretty well. Microsoft really...
Wasn't it the 3DS or the Wii U finally got Minecraft?
Both, and the Switch. So all those 3 Nintendo consoles all got Minecraft, which is like a big deal, like, because Microsoft owns that property. But I mean, if you can, expand your install base, like, why wouldn't you? But
and they didn't just get Minecraft.
They got all the
Mario themes and stuff. So like Microsoft had their employees work on Mario themed stuff, with like the Mario 64 music and everything else that you can find in there. Like Nintendo had to give Microsoft permission to use that stuff. So that's
so
really
they seem
interesting.
they seem to be playing nice.
Yeah.
So I think a game like Banjo-Kazooie could maybe make it onto an N64 Classic. But a game like GoldenEye, where there's all three suddenly have to play nice with each other,
I could see
I'm not
it
sure.
because with Microsoft, they would probably think, well, we already have Rare Replay on Xbox One. It was like $30 for 30 games, or maybe it was $30 for 60 games or something like that. And Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie were already on, and Conker's Bad Fur Day, some of the other Rare games, was already on that. So the people who want to buy Banjo-Kazooie or play Banjo-Kazooie, whatever, right now the best way possible to play those games is on the Xbox, well, probably the Xbox One X, if it gets like 4K support to where it renders in 4K and everything. But those are essentially the Xbox 360 versions of those games, to where it plays in true widescreen, it's in HD. That is the go-to way if you want to play those games. On the N64 Classic, you would be playing, it would be the not the widescreen version, but the standard 4x3 version that you would have played on the Nintendo 64. It'll be rendering in, I assume, 720p. So it's not like Microsoft would be sitting there saying, hey, if we did give Nintendo the rights to use this game, then they'll have the superior version. It'll be better on that, because it wouldn't.
They wouldn't now.
They would have they would be giving the
essentially
inferior version to Nintendo to use.
And also, like, on the flip side of things, if we remember back when they were doing the Smash Bros contest to see the polls.
Yes.
I can't remember what it's called.
Banjo.
The Microsoft, the Xbox boss, what's his name? I can't remember what his name is. But anyways, I remember he came out pretty big time saying, I'd love for
Phil
Banjo.
Spencer?
Yes, Phil Spencer.
Because like you said, right, Xbox boss. I know there's like 3 or 4 people.
One of those guys.
Yeah.
But he came out and said, hey, I want Banjo and Kazooie to be a Smash Bros fighter. Or I'd love to see that happen. And Microsoft has worked with Nintendo on Rare IPs before, because there were Banjo-Kazooie games on Game Boy Advance, I believe.
Yeah.
So that could maybe work if they're still friendly enough about it. Like you said, they would be essentially just getting an HD version of the N64 game, not the updated Xbox game.
Yeah. So it would be playing in 720p, but it still wouldn't be widescreen.
Yeah.
And wouldn't have the updated textures or anything else.
Exactly. So I feel like that game, maybe Banjo-Tooie, but more likely Banjo-Kazooie. I feel like that game is super plausible on this. Yeah.
So what do you think a
cool
price point would be? Because like the first one was $60 and the SNES was $80.
I feel like if they go higher than 80, it's not going to sell.
Yeah, I was thinking,
it would be really cool. Sell.
It would be really cool if they did something that was like $64, but then, like, I feel
that only works in the States, because in Canada it would then be just $80.
Oh yeah,
everything is, our dollar difference makes everything more expensive here.
Yeah, so the SNES has the 20 games in it. Do you think that would be the same for the N64? It would have 20 games, or do you think it would be?
I believe so, but I think the article said that, how many games was it? 19 game manuals were listed online.
Okay.
So that seems like pretty reasonable. 19 N64 games is still like,
and
that's a good collection.
You have to think that like Japan got different games than North America. So like, even if there was 19 games listed, maybe 15 of those would be for Japan, and then like the 4 that's left to make up that 19 would be switched out with 4 other games.
Yeah.
So, like, whatever they thought would be more popular in Japan versus what's more popular in North America. And then you also, like, what makes me most excited is if they did something similar to Starfox 2. Which is like they take a game that wasn't necessarily finished and then complete it and release it. And we all know
there's
what
gonna
game.
Be people. There's gonna be people saying, give me Ura Zelda."
Yes,
They're gonna say it.
And
even though it was retooled, basically.
Yes. Like, even though like it was changed into Majora's Mask, and then some stuff went to Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, it would still be really interesting to see, although it would probably destroy the lore of the
absolutely
series. Because like right now Ocarina of Time ends and then like that split happens or whatever. So like if Ocarina of Time ends and then something happens after that, like, because after that ends, the Link that's left goes on to Termina.
Yep, and then becomes the Hero Shade.
Right, so if they can't really have the Ura expansion unless they specifically state that it's not canon, because then you would be playing as young Link and adult Link after the split happens. And then, unless they somehow tooled it in to where it works before you defeat Ganon. But it was supposed to be an expansion of the game, not something that takes place like before defeating Ganon. So I don't know, that's a whole box to discuss some other time.
I'm sure there's probably a video somewhere out there, Jesse, where someone could learn about Ura Zelda. I wonder where they could find it.
Where could people learn about games that were canceled or unreleased?
I feel like there's somewhere on YouTube someone could find that.
Maybe if we should get some help from an expert who's been talking about unreleased and canceled games for about 10 years.
Ooh, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to the next news.
For those who didn't follow along, we also have the unreleased and canceled games in our gaming history series, where we talk about all sorts of random unreleased canceled games in the Mario, Zelda, and other franchises. And the expert I was referring to is one of my awesome friends, Yuri of Wind, who should be joining us on here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So Rocket Robot on Wheels is the crazy obscure game that I want, because I had it on the Nintendo 64 and it was like a weird... Did you ever play it?
I never did.
It was like a weird, bizarre platforming game, kind of like Banjo-Kazooie, but you're a robot.
Okay.
And like a unicycle robot. Like, you move around with one wheel on the, I don't know, it's weird. But then you have like a short range telekinesis to where you can pick stuff up and complete puzzles and everything. It was really bizarre, but I didn't have many games for the Nintendo 64, so excuse me.
Ooh,
it was
no
really
dying.
Yes, it was really it was really great whenever I got it, because when I was little, I spent all of my money on toys. I had a huge collection of Digimon toys instead of video games. So, yeah.
Yep.
What was it? WCW, NWO, Revenge, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, 007, Wave Racer, I think. When I was in 6th grade, I traded... This is one of the stupidest things I've ever done. I traded Mario Kart 64 to one of my friends in one of my classes for Wayne Gretzky's... Wayne Gretzky's... whatever year it was at the time. Like 98, whatever.
Dude,
and he was supposed to...
off.
Yes, it was supposed to be for like a week, but he never brought me the game back. So I was stuck with like this crappy hockey game.
Oh no, dude.
Yeah, instead of Mario Kart. But those are the games that I played on Nintendo 64. I always wanted to play Quest 64 because it was like the RPG that was designed specifically for the Nintendo 64, and it got a lot of bad reviews, I remember, but And Ocarina of Time, like the game manual, I believe had a little promo in the back of it for Quest 64. So I was always interested in playing the game, but I never got the chance to. And then Banjo-Kazooie, all those games, Smash Bros. Those are the games that I played on the Nintendo 64. Diddy Kong Racing, maybe a few others. What are the games that you mostly played on 64?
I mostly played Zelda's, obviously. Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask, and Donkey Kong 64. Those were like... Oh, and there's this Star Wars pod racing game.
Yes, I never got to play that. I played Shadow of the Empire, was my Star Wars game on... Never could get past Boba Fett, though.
No, the only time I played Shadows of the Empire is my dentist office had an N64 in the waiting room that had Shadows of the Empire, so I'd play it like every 6 months as a kid. But yeah, I had Mario Party and just the first one, way back when it was just Mario Party, Mario Kart 64, and I constantly borrowed. A neighbor of mine had Super Mario 64, so I borrowed it a lot. And another friend of my brother's had Starfox 64, which we also borrowed a lot. And those two games, like especially Starfox 64, it is like almost a perfect game. Just it's so good. But again, nostalgia goggles, just they're locked and loaded. So yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah,
that brings us to the end of this one. We kind of stuck on it for a little while.
A little bit.
That's what nostalgia does.
It does.
The videos on this channel are funded by supporters on Patreon like you. If you're a fan of this channel and would like to join on videos, receive shoutouts, watch videos early, have your questions answered, or have your topic discussed on our podcast, please consider supporting on Patreon for these and many other rewards for just $1. Shoutouts for this video includes Link Use the Triforce, Rusty Caulfield, Lovable Christy, Give Time 15, Shadow to Us, Robbie Morgan, and Lunarium. I want to thank all of you for everything you have done to help support this channel.